What is up, PAL fam? Welcome to day 97 of Countdown to FIDE 100. Today, we're now here at the final calendar decade of covering it on Countdown to FIDE 100. At the same time, it's also the current year that we're on, a current decade that we're on it. All right, let's start things off in 2020. We're just like 2020 is like we're just starting a new decade and all this stuff. Things are a bit fine, but when March arrives, it's just the World Health Organization declares it a pandemic, and then people are forced to stay at home in order to not getting caught by the virus, and more on that. That's 2020 is definitely a roller coaster, and even the Olympics was postponed a year later in 2021. Even the FIDE candidates, it could have ended in April 2020, but instead ended up like it was postponed halfway a year later. So yeah. Okay, this game between Daniil Dubov and Sergey Karjakin was played in December 2020. So in December 2020, it's like a bit like controlled. What they have to do distancing first, or it might be an online chess game, but we'll see about that. Okay, let's begin. Daniil Dubov begins with e4, and then Sergey Karjakin begins with e5, and then knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, c3, knight f6, d4, e takes. Yeah, I always do that. I don't know why I do that, but I just heard this opening all the time. Yeah, e takes d4 and then b4. Oh, stating it says that better is c takes d4. I've done that. And then bishop d4, bishop d2, knight takes, bishop takes, knight takes, and he checks on there, king, and I take queen b3 because you can see this. Oh no, 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 one. You can see the position right there. Seems interesting. Back to b4, the game continues with bishop b6, e5, knight e4, bishop d5, knight takes, d takes, and Daniil Dubov is gonna make things interesting with bishop g5, which the engine says it's a mistake. Could have fixed it with a4, a5, b5, knight e7, knight g5, knight g5, knight takes, queen e7, and then he castles d6, and the position is equal at this point. Back to bishop g5, the game continues with bishop e7 with black having the slight advantage, and then castles, h6, bishop h4, and then Sergey Karjakin also got the question mark with castles. I don't know what's the point, but it just gives the bishop and the queen and the knight in a bit of a trouble. Could have done with g5, but and can just like castle queen side, that could work. And then bishop g3, knight takes, queen takes, but the engine says castle anyway on queen side. For ac1, d6, e takes, c takes, and black's position will have like a slight advantage. Yeah, slight advantage. So here, after castling, after rook e1, the position becomes equal again, and the game continues with queen e8, bishop b3, a5, bishop f6, and a4. Karjakin also made a mistake here, or maybe an inaccuracy, or what is it? W's or interesting move that's somewhat, but I don't know what's the point of it. The game continues with if the game if knight f5 would have been continued according to the variation, queen d3, e6, e takes, queen d7, bishop takes, queen takes, and knight takes. But there's something I don't understand. He left the he hung the bishop. If he takes it, I'm gonna take it back, and he loses the knight. Okay, I get it. I get it. Okay, back to a4. The game continues with bishop c4, knight g6, and queen d3, which is another interesting move as well. Yep, I've seen queen d3 is technically trying to go for queen takes g6, and if he takes it, that's an illegal move because it's a check. Could have fixed it with queen c2, queen c2, d5, e takes, bishop e6, rook a d1, g takes, d7, queen e7, rook takes e6, and white's position will have like a slight advantage over here. I'd say like the only thing good is to take it this because you cannot take the bishop, you cannot take the other one. Back to queen d3. The game continues with d5, and then en passant, bishop e6, queen takes, giving up the queen, rook takes, queen f7, bishop takes, king h8, rook e4, queen f5, rook e7, rook g8, and he gave up the bishop, and then bishop e5, bishop takes, king h1, and then bishop b6, which seems interesting, but that's a bad move according to the engine. Could have done king h7, and then knight d4, bishop takes, h5, b5, g5, rook a e1, h4, and h3, and white would have been in a slight advantage. That makes sense. Back to bishop b6. The game continues with h3. That's a better position for white, but it would have been better after e3, king h7, g4. Oh, it's h4. h4, g5, h takes, knight takes, king g6, knight h3, rook c8, and yeah. And I'll say I'm gonna give it a check. And then if he goes here, I say I'm gonna go for there. And what are the possible moves? He has to give up the rook. So I would say I'm gonna go for bishop, but that's probably a bad idea. So I'd say knight check. And if he goes here, rook g5, moving forward. And then there, checkmate. We're back to h3. The game continues with king h7, rook e1, h3, which is a bad move. Yeah, I don't know why, but it seems interesting. Could have done with g5, and then knight e4, bishop takes, h5, king h2, queen to f5, rook 1 e4, b6, and white is definitely in a better position. Back to a3, the game continues with king h2, but the better one is knight to d4, bishop takes, queen d2, bishop takes g7, giving up the queen anyway, and then king takes g7, with white definitely winning here. Back to king h2, the game continues with g5, making white remain in a better position, and then knight d4. Instead of knight d4, the engine suggests rook d7, queen c4, knight e2, queen c6, rook e7, bishop f2, rook e2, bishop b4, bishop takes, and then queen d6 with white still remain in a winning position. The only thing good is to rook to e5, and then he has to give up the the bishop rather, and then I'll go for knight e4. Back to knight e4, the game continues with queen c4, which is another bad move, which it's crumbling so bad for Sergei Karjakin. Could have done like takes, and then queen f5, rook 1 e4, h5, g4, h takes, queen g6, and white's position will have like a slight advantage. That could work. And the game ends with knight f5, making white winning, and then queen takes, rook c1, king g6, rook takes, king takes, rook takes, bishop takes, queen b2, rook c5, king e4, and rook d8. And the game is over after Sergei Karjakin resigns, because I think there's like no fight at all on this 3 pieces versus a 1 queen. It's like 13/9, and can count up this. So it's like a 3-point advantage for white. And if the game would have been continued, you can go queen f6, rook e5, queen takes, bishop takes, b5, bishop d6, king d5, and bishop check. So yeah, interesting enough to see this one on a pandemic year. It was very crazy and with online chess spiking out, and the Queen's Gambit. I almost forgot. Queen's Gambit is actually a hit in the Netflix. Okay, we're gonna conclude it for today. Thank you for watching, POW. Don't forget to subscribe and become a patron member at patreon.com/Paul POW. And I'll tell you tomorrow, we're gonna cover the longest World Championship match ever as a sneak peek, because I'm gonna try to cover it out with tons of moves, like hundreds of it. It's a game between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi in the World Championship 2021 tomorrow. So yeah, look forward to it, and I'll see you tomorrow.